This episode of Bookworm is sponsored by Factor Meals. Healthy eating made easy. Get 50% off at factormeals.com/bookworm50 and use the code bookworm50. All right, so we've got two follow-up action items here, which are both mine from many weeks ago at this point, and I am sad to say I still haven't done these.
The part that I love about this is that the moment that we decided to start carrying these forward in our outline so that we don't forget to carry them forward, because historically we've just relied on the editing part and then we hear it in the editing and then it gets carried forward. But then we had Toby start doing that for us. And then that stopped happening. So then we started bolding them in our outline to make sure that we don't forget to carry them forward. And we did that change the week that this started, which was now, what, 4 episodes ago? 3 episodes ago?
I don't know. As long as this action item has been on the list.
It got me to do them. Like, one of these, the list 10 things for I know I'm being successful when, it got me to do it because I didn't want it to carry over. And I was like, no, I will not let it carry over. Yep. And it got me to do it. So it's a good thing we did that. But dude, that.
Well, glad it's working for you. I still need to do these. I was putting the notes together for this episode because it's mine, and I wanted to delete these so bad.
Just saying done.
Yep. But since we said we were going to carry them over, I'm going to keep carrying them over until I actually get them done. So the 2 that I failed at are list my 10 things for I know I'm being successful when. Joe did this last time. Go listen to that episode if you want to hear his. And Michael Porter even did this in the faith-based productivity community. So other people are completing my action items ahead of me, but I still think this is something that I should do, and then teach my family to call each other out when in the gap. I mean, this book is that was what, 3 or 4 ago? Yeah, that feels like that was last winter at this point, but I don't have a good excuse. I know it's been busy since I went out on my own, but I can't use that forever. At some point, I just got to do it. So Obsidian University has wrapped up at this point, so I have a little bit of time back. The last live session as we record this was last Friday, and it went really, really well. Everyone in it kind of sounded like they wanted to keep it going, so I guess I'll kind of morph this into an announcement. What I've done is I have continued to keep Obsidian University open, and everybody who had bought it previously, attended the cohort, we're going to continue to do these Friday calls. And initially it was just going to be Q&A calls, but then I started talking to some people and asked them if they'd share different workflows and things. And so we got a couple of those lined up. Bodie's going to do his this week as we record. The next week, I had some back and forth with someone named Danny Hatcher on Twitter, who I've never actually met, but they had a really cool Canvas workflow for reading books of all things. So he's going to come talk about how he put that together. And if you want to join, I've kind of reworked the website a little bit, and it's going to become a membership community essentially. So we'll continue to do the cohorts every so often. And sorry if you missed the first one, because that was the great deal, $250 for lifetime access, and you get all the cohorts. The membership now, I have it as $150 a year. I want to continue to think about how I can make that more valuable. But at the moment, the value proposition there is that you get access to the recordings from the first cohort while I build out a curriculum inside of that. And then you also get access to the community, the templates that I shared in the calls and stuff like that, like my daily notes template and stuff like that. My home note, I kind of shared how I built that stuff and then provided that to the cohort. So that kind of stuff will be in there, like my Bible Vault thing, all that kind of stuff. And then a discount on future cohorts. But the lifetime deal is now gone. But if you want to join the community, you still can. So obsidianuniversity.com if you are interested in using Obsidian to boost your creativity and productivity workflows. Help me grow that thing, and then I will have some time to think about my action items again.
I will say, like, I wasn't able to catch almost any. I think I caught one of the live cohort sessions, and I've been working through all of the recordings. I think I only have one left to work through. Looking at the list here, I think it's just one, and I have completely changed a lot of things in how I use Obsidian, and there are a lot of things that I have done, just like logging things, journaling, gratitude, that type of thing on a daily basis that for whatever reason I've struggled with in the past. I don't know what it is about putting that in like a daily note in Obsidian, but something about that and the process to like put it in there is super simple. And I don't think I would have found those workflows or had that ability had I not gone through some of your stuff with Obsidian University. So kudos to you on putting this together. I don't know how you come up with some of this stuff, Mike, but it's pretty slick. So I would absolutely endorse you for anyone who's interested in going through this. So it's well worth it. Easy.
Well, thank you. I figured it out through trial and error, essentially. In fact, there were
That's
many.
how everybody does everything, right?
Yeah, there were a few of the sessions where I felt like I really shouldn't be teaching this, and this other person who is watching me present it should be teaching this instead. Like data view specifically was one of those where I know there were some people in there who were using data view like really heavily. But I guess the one superpower I have is that if someone says, "How do I do something?" I will go figure it out.
Yeah.
And then try to break it down and communicate it simply so people can apply it. But there were lots of those moments in this cohort where someone asked a question. I was like, you know what? I don't know. But I'll go find out, and a couple
Yeah.
days later when we have our next live session, able to share it. But yeah, I kind of miss it actually now that it's because I've been doing 3 sessions a week for the last 4 weeks, and now this week, as we record this on a Thursday, we have a session tomorrow. But I feel like I'm missing all my peeps. All my fellow Obsidian nerds. Used to seeing them multiple times a week, and now it's just gonna be once a week. So I don't have another date for the next cohort. I have a couple different thoughts. I do want to repeat the big one that I did, but that's more like a soup to nuts, everything you need to know about Obsidian for people who are just coming to it. But I also want to do other like specialized cohorts on and go really deep on like task management, for example, because I did one session on that, but that's way too much to cram into 90
Yeah.
minutes effectively. So, but yeah, all those announcements are going to be obviously in the community. So if you're interested at all, come check it out. All right. I don't think I have any other talking points here in this follow-up section. Should we go into today's book?
Yeah, because this will be different and very fun, I think.
This could either be over in about 10 minutes or we're going to fight to keep it under 2 hours. One of the two.
If it lands around the hour and a half mark, I'm going to be shocked. So just because it's, yeah, like you're saying, it's either super short, super long. I don't expect us to very easily hit our normal target time.
Yeah, so the reason for that is that today's book is Excellent Advice for Living, Wisdom I Wish I'd Known Earlier by Kevin Kelly. And it's kind of a book of a bunch of short little anecdotes. Are you familiar with Kevin Kelly? Have you read anything else that he's written?
I believe, yes. Oh, shoot. Which one is it? The Inevitable?
Yep.
Does that sound right?
That was one, right?
It was the one about like all the tech stuff, because that's what I do. Yes.
Yeah, I think The Inevitable was the previous one. In fact, it says at the very bottom of the cover, New York Times bestselling author of The Inevitable. So
Yeah.
that was definitely his. I want to say he's the person who came up with the original idea, but it was so long ago now, I can't really figure out who originally to attribute this to. But the 1,000 True Fans idea, I think that came from Kevin Kelly back in the day, which is basically if you're going to be if you want to go independent, what you really need is 1,000 true fans and get them to pay you, $5 a month, and now you've got a decent income. And I've heard that probably hundreds of times in the last 10 years or so. But I think that's pretty good advice. And that didn't show up here, but a lot of other advice that he has collected throughout the years did. The background for this book, by the way, is that his family had encouraged him on his 68th birthday to come up with 68 bits of wisdom that he could share. And so he did that, and then he continued to write down advice every year. And now he's got about 450 of them, he said in the introduction. There's nothing in here, I feel, that is completely original. There are absolutely no like sources, this is where I got this. And he encourages us to share these with someone younger, which I think is kind of a cool idea. Pay it forward. Because the whole idea here is that this is all stuff that he wished he had known, and he's sharing it with people in the hopes that they are going to apply some of this. However, it's almost like a Derek Sivers book, where Derek Sivers tends to just share a bunch of these little essays in his books, and some of them are even contradictory, and you just take the ones that resonate with you. So that's kind of the approach with this. The advice is kind of all over the map. It's not broken down into sections or categories, which makes this a really hard book to do for bookworm. Because where in the world are you going to put the chapters? I have no idea. What did you think about this book initially when you picked it up, before we get into the specifics of some of the advice here?
Whenever I saw the title Excellent Advice for Living, I kind of thought I was going to get like 12 to 18 chapters of here's an idea, here's why you should adopt this idea. That was the format I was expecting to get. This is basically a book of quotes. At one point, I think Becky saw me reading this and she's like, "Oh, is that like the between section?" I don't remember what her comment was. I was like, it's basically quotes, like a whole book of quotes. That's what this is. Condensed down, shortened versions of something that all need expansion. And this could easily fill many, many, many books if you were to expand each of these ideas. So I was not prepared for that. At the same time, like, it makes it a very fast read. You could sit down and read this in one sitting if you wanted to. And there's a lot here. Obviously, there's tons of good wisdom to learn from. But I kind of, having read as much as we have for Bookworm, it's kind of a breath of fresh air, to honestly. Just because it's different, like just because it's odd in comparison to the many things that we cover. So I appreciated it. But again, it's a little bit of a different format, obviously.
Yeah, it is definitely a different format. And I had the same thought as you, that it is kind of a breath of fresh air. For me specifically, it was not a lot of time required to get through this one.
Yeah. Yes.
So that was kind of nice. I needed the respite. But yeah, like normally when we read books for Bookworm, it's on a specific topic and the author's going deep and basically saying this is everything you need to know about topic X. And then we talk about topic X. And it's impossible to do that with this book because it is a lot of like one-liners. They're not all that short. There are some that are several sentences long, which made it a little bit difficult for me to take notes on this one because I basically was trying to capture the ones that stood out to me. And at first I was trying to do them word for word, like quotes essentially. But then as I went, I actually just started capturing the essence of the ideas that he was sharing. And yeah, it's a very colorful mind node because they're all like one level below the book cover in the middle. There's no grouping or organization to these. So as I was thinking through how in the world are we going to discuss this? Because I picked this book essentially because I had heard of Kevin Kelly and been around for a while, wanted to read something he had written, and this was the one that I had heard from multiple people like, hey, this book just came out and it's really good. And I do think it's good, but you have to have the right approach here. And so the right approach, I think, would not just be to read this and surface level, like jot a couple of these things down. Maybe there's some value to be gathered from that. But I do think that part of the way that books really stick is when you have some sort of conversation with somebody else about this. So I'm excited about going through this with you, but I have absolutely no idea what this is actually going to look like. So the high fact finder in me is a little bit nervous as we embark on this journey.
That's right. Well, the way that the way that I went through this and took notes on it was and the way I take notes on a lot of books is I write down the page number and then I write like my view of the thing. Typically, basically, I'm summarizing the idea or the point that was interesting to me. In this particular case, that doesn't really work real well because that's going to end up being significantly longer than the thing that he wrote. So then I'm writing like a third of a book in the process of trying to take notes on this one. And so what I did in this case is I wrote down the page number and then I just wrote like literally a 4 or 5 word summary of what it is that he had. That way I can look through and let it jog my memory of what it was, like at least the idea behind the phrasing that he had. And then I could go back to it. But like you were saying, there's 400 plus in here. I think I have maybe 20, 25 tops that I've written down here. And then I think we each picked 10 to cover. So we're going to, I think, theoretically try to rapid fire our way through this. I do well with stuff like this. Mike gets really nervous because he doesn't know what's coming next. But I'm usually fine.
That is very true. All right.
And the hard part here is that you get to go first.
Yep, that is true. So I guess I'll kick it off here with one of the ones from near the beginning of the book. It's really about this idea of continuing to learn. There's this quote that he shares about how if you can't do something, it's embarrassing, but if you are learning to do something, it's admirable. And this is relevant to the discussion we had in the follow-up section about the Obsidian University stuff, because I definitely had the thought when I was, teaching something and then I didn't have an answer. It's like, oh no, everybody's looking to me as the guru. I'm the one teaching this session. Like they're going to think less of me because I don't have the answers. So that was the embarrassing part, right? But then I think I was pretty effective in being able to flip that. And like, I know it's fine if I don't know something. But in the moment, I still felt like nervous about it. Like I should have all the answers. And this was a good reminder that, and the framing of this is also like something I've heard before, but also a little bit unique. So I like the way that if you are learning to do something, it's admirable. I think the big takeaway was when I walked away from the session and was like, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to figure it out and get back to you. People actually respected that even more. And then kind of coupled with this, so I'm kind of cheating and doing 2 here at the beginning, but I think they're sort of related. Enthusiasm is worth 25 IQ points. If there's one thing I can do, it is be excited about Obsidian. So maybe that helped hide that a little bit. I don't know.
I can't do this, but I'm super excited about it and I'm learning how to do it. So therefore you should trust me. And people do. That's how it goes.
Well, that's not exactly what I said, but I feel like that's kind of what happens. Just by being excited about something. It's not like you're even saying like, hey, check it out, I'm really smart. But people just, they do like that enthusiasm. They're drawn to it. And obviously the takeaway there is be enthusiastic about whatever it is that you enjoy, whatever you're passionate about. Don't be ashamed about it, try to downplay it, whatever. Just be a super fan.
Yeah. I like this one. It's not that you can't do it, it's that you're learning to do it. And it occurred to me that there are many times like when my kids will say, oh, I can't do that. Well, technically you are correct. You're not able to do that right now, but that's because you're still learning how to do it. I just can't make a basket at basketball. Well, that doesn't mean you should quit. That just means you're learning how to do it. But I feel like if you can convince a kid to make that mental shift, it could make a big difference for them. But
Yeah.
I've not really thought about it that way. So I really like this one. I like a lot of these. Hopefully I don't say that too much. I really like this one. I'm just going to I'm going to put it on a button over here and just hit it after every one of these.
We are very sarcastic at our house. So when I hear that from my kids, I was like, well, the best thing to do when you can't do something is just give up. And they all
like something we
know
would say around our house. Yeah.
they all know that I'm kidding. That is not the thing to do, and actually they should stick with it. But if someone was just overhearing our conversations or just looked at like a text transcript of a day in the life, they would be maybe appalled.
What are you doing to your kids? Well, I've got another one here from page 7. I wrote page numbers down. Mike did not. He's leading me blind here. But page 7, this is a quick 2-liner. Prototype your life. Try stuff instead of making grand plans. I wrote this down because I struggle with this. That might be a theme here today. It's like I have a tendency to want to do a lot of planning and can get a lot of planning done. But the trick is that doing stuff informs those plans, and I regularly don't. So I need to be better about, this actually comes up a lot. It's like doing small things, making small changes. I'm sure that'll come up a few times here. But just being willing to jump in, make those mistakes, learn how to do it, but don't spend so much time planning.
Well, this is where I find myself. So I can tell you, I guess, like there is benefit from doing this, but I will also say that it has been really stressful.
Yeah.
Because you couple this with another one that he said a little bit later, that when you have a large project, 90% done, finishing the final details will take another 90%.
Yep.
So combine Obsidian University as my big project, right? And that's just one puzzle piece into the how does Mike feed his family equation. And I don't know the exact things to do. So I've had to embrace like a mindset of curiosity and experiment with things. And I feel like that has provided some clarity. I'm actually working with Matt Ragland on like email newsletter strategy. I really appreciate his approach. I feel like he does it really well. And I remember going to Craft and Commerce, and obviously the big focus there is on like email marketing and growing your newsletter. And then I attended Jay Klaus's newsletter masterclass, and I realized like, what even is my newsletter? It's like a few little anecdotes from my life, but who's signing up to read that? A few people who know me, I guess, people from the podcasts. But Jay had talked about how your newsletter should really be like your primary product. So like if people go to my website, it should be really clear what they're going to get from the newsletter. I don't think it's clear. Like I don't even know what you're going to get from
what do
the
you
newsletter.
Even make clear?
Yeah. So that's a little bit of a roundabout way of saying like I'm kind of in the middle of this. I'm just trying stuff, and as I'm trying stuff, I'm getting clarity on like the newsletter is the thing. But if I were to sit down and plan like, okay, this is what needs to happen, like it would be irrelevant in a couple of hours because there would be new information, and at some point you just gotta focus on one thing, right? But I feel like especially at the beginning of a new season, you kind of do just have to try stuff. That's where I'm at. I'm trying stuff.
Yeah, as far as like content stuff goes, like I'm still in the middle of things. This is partly why I brought it up, because I have a tendency to try to figure it all out and make grand plans without moving, and I'll always find a reason to not move. So that's why I wrote it down. Like, don't do that, Joe. Stop it.
Cool. Next one I wrote down, and this was really for discussion because I feel like this is really good advice. I don't think I do this, But one thing he said was, don't say anything about someone in an email you wouldn't say to them directly. It will get back to them. And when I read that, I was thinking about all of the lawsuit stuff because we follow Apple. Like there's the emails that came out when Fortnite was suing them and Basecamp was upset, and like a lot of these corporate brouhahas can be traced back to somebody sent an email they shouldn't have sent. And
Yes.
every time I read one of those, I'm like, if you would have just said it in a Zoom call, I mean, yeah, theoretically that could be recorded and transcribed, but like the lesson is like have these conversations face to face. Don't send an email. You can have those thoughts. You can talk about those things. I mean, I just like one example was, I don't remember the specifics, but Phil Schiller was in an email talking about, are we in a monopoly position, and just asking that question. Like there wasn't anything malicious even in the tone of the email, but like they should be asking those questions. But then that gets used as evidence of like, see, you were already aware of this. Like that's no bueno.
Yes. The intent is lost in the words on the page. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're doing that, if you're having conversations about sensitive stuff via email, knock it off. Have those conversations in directly, synchronously, not asynchronously.
It's usually a lot better conversation too, and you can hash things out. I think the problem gets to be, and the reason people do it is because it's easy and they're used to it. People get so wrapped up in the email world that they just continue to send emails about these things when they should not do that, rather than try to hash out very sensitive topics in a very limited medium. Get in person. And
Yeah.
you eliminate some record on some of this stuff too. Like sometimes if here's the thing that's like floating in the back of my head. If it's something that's so sensitive that you don't want a record of it, then should it be happening at all? In that case, like, are we in a monopoly situation? Well, yes, of course, they need to have that conversation. But if there's a situation where you're talking about someone else, which was the intent of his thing here, and you're now going to eliminate using email to have that conversation and instead do it in person, I would argue you probably shouldn't be having that conversation at all, in most cases.
Well, let me push back on that. In most cases, maybe, yeah.
This is not a hard and fast rule, obviously.
Yeah, so not everyone's dealing with large antitrust stuff, obviously, right?
Yes.
But at the
not.
previous job, there were a couple of occasions where it became evident. We even talked about this in the last episode because one of the pieces of advice there was the minute that you have the thought that you should let someone go, that is the time to let them go.
Yes.
Right. So I was on a leadership team, and there were a couple team members that did crazy things and had the conversation, should we let this person go? That conversation should never, ever, ever happen on Slack. And in fact, our lawyer told us that at one point. He's like, if you're going to talk about this at all, which those conversations need to happen, we have to have consensus as a leadership team. This is the right move to make, right? He's like, you have to do that face to face.
Yes.
You cannot have a record of that. You will get sued.
Yes. Yep. It can all be misconstrued, even if it is constructive.
Exactly. Yep.
One that I wrote down here to keep us going, so this is not a 7-hour episode, is on page 16. And I wrote this down mostly as a confirmation of something that I've been aware of for a while and that I want to put together for my kids. So here's what it says. We lack rites of passage. Create a memorable family ceremony when your child reaches legal adulthood between 18 and 21. This moment will become a significant touchstone in their life. This is something, we have talked about this a little bit in the past. Rites of passage is something that we just don't have a clean ceremony for in our culture and our society in the U.S. It's something that I want my girls to have, but I don't know what that is. I've often heard that 16 is the timing. So I'm not sure that age range is something that I would agree with. Maybe it is. But I want to at least have this conversation with my wife. So I do have that as an action item to talk through what that could look like with Becky, because it's something that I want to have happen. I want to make sure that they're able to receive that, even if I did not. So I want them to feel that movement into adulthood, not just wonder. Make it clear.
Yeah, we got to attend a ceremony for some friends of ours. Their son turned 13, and they had a birthday party for him. But it was not just like have a bunch of people over and have cake and party. I mean, there was elements of that, but there was also a whole ceremony where the son was sitting on a chair in the front of a room, and they had like a PA set up, and there were maybe 30, 40 people in the room, and his dad gets up and he's like looking at him, so they're sitting facing each other in front of the people that are sitting there, and he's basically like giving him life advice. And then they had 3 or 4 other men that the son looked up to, basketball coach and close personal friends, etc. They got up and they all shared their advice. And then at the end, they had a cross necklace thing that they gave him, and it was like a big formal thing. It wasn't long. It took like 20 to 30 minutes probably, but I thought it was really cool. And I've been thinking about doing something like that with my sons too. I actually have something in mind for like when Toby turns 16, which is coming up quick. So got to finalize those details.
Yes,
Maybe this should be an action
out,
item
Mike.
for me. No, I kind of know already what this is gonna look like. But I think this is really a really cool idea. Haven't gone through it myself. I thought it was awesome when I saw it for their 13-year-old son, but I also had the thought when I saw it that I don't want to do that with my sons when they're 13. They got to be a little bit older. I think it was appropriate for them. I don't know. You could tell like it meant a lot. Like the kid actually got it. So it wasn't just like, okay, we did this thing and now we can point back to it. Like it was a really powerful moment. But I also think it's one of those things you gotta custom fit it for your situation. And every person, every family is going to be a little bit different. But I agree, everyone should have something here that they do with their kids. All right, next one is this is sort of a non-serious one.
Okay.
I put this one on here because I was joking about this with my wife. I was reading this book at the pool one night. We were there, the kids were swimming, and I had told her about this book and opened to the one which said, don't ask anyone if they're pregnant, let them tell you. So she kind of knew what it was. Yeah, she kind of knew what the book was all about, but then there was one in here that I read it and I just started laughing. She's like, "What's so funny?" And that was that if you have any doubt at all about being able to carry a load in one trip, do yourself a huge favor and make 2 trips. Because Rachel totally does this, and every single time I see her do it, I'm like, "What are you doing?"
That's the thing. Like the importance of the advice in this is very wide ranging, all the way down to what was the one I wrote? Learn how to make a bowline knot. Like that was it. Like learn how to make a bowline knot. You'll never realize how often you're going to use that. Or like simple stuff is in here. Measure twice, cut once, like that he puts in here.
Mm-hmm.
So I love it. I love that it's this really big, wide-ranging levels of advice.
Yep. There's another like random one, which is if you need rope, a a ladder or an extension cord, always buy more than you think you need.
Yes. Always buy it a lot longer than you think you're going to need, and it will be the right length.
Yeah, so there's a good mix of like that, like insanely practical, you're only going to use this once or twice sort of a thing, and also like the deep life stuff, which
Yeah.
obviously that's what I tend to talk about more, but
That's most of what we have down here. Page 26, when I wrote down, tend to the small things. More people are defeated by blisters than by mountains. This is really interesting because I find that either it's myself or someone else, it's usually the little things that make something stop more so than the great big boulders that are in their way. So the fact that somebody doesn't have a long enough extension cord means that they don't put together an event for their kid because they can't get power out to a certain area. Like, what? That's a big deal. Take care of that. Like, that's buy a longer extension cord, like something. I don't care. But stuff along that line seems to happen quite a lot. And that can get to be a little bit frustrating, but it's also eye-opening to realize that those small things are regularly the things that beat us down.
do you have any, as you were reading this, because you picked this one, and obviously resonated with you, was there any revelation of a small thing that's kept you from doing a big thing?
I don't know that I haven't been able to lock in on it because it's something that I know that tends to come up for me quite a bit. It's like, okay, I want to let's pick one I've kind of been working on. I want to be able to do 30 push-ups in one round. Like, sure, that's great, but you don't get to where you can do 30 push-ups by running or doing push-ups once a week. Like, you're not going to get to that point, but it's the little stuff of, well, making sure that I take the time to do push-ups in the morning before the rest of the day even starts to help build that practice. That's the important part, but it hurts to do that, and I don't want to do that. But that's a very small, minor thing. It's not some great big, like, my arm's broken thing that's stopping me from it. It's just I don't want to. It's a very minor ordeal. It's probably the cleanest response I can give you at the moment.
Well, the reason I ask is because when I read that, I had the thought that people are pretty good at recognizing there is something that is keeping them from following through and taking action. But just myself personally, the example that comes to mind is like practicing an instrument. And the default can be, well, I just don't have the right the right amp or the right guitar or the right effects.
Yep.
And I have spent thousands of dollars on that stuff. It has not unlocked effortless practice for me.
Yes.
You know what has helped? Having my guitar on the wall right there. So when
Yep.
I get done with something like this, I can take it down and play for 10 minutes.
Yes.
And that hook on the wall cost me $10 as opposed to all the fancy gear.
Yep. Well, this is similar to people who want to get into, say, YouTube or podcasting. And like, well, I don't have the money saved up to buy the microphone or the interface or the camera or the lights. Like, I don't have that. So I need to wait until I like grab your phone, turn on the camera, put it to video, and hit the red button. Like, that is way more adequate than it used to be. So it's very, very good for starting out. And then if you get traction with it, then you're better off. So like, it's the little stuff. Yes, it definitely gets in the way.
It's the little stuff that unlocks the manifestation of what you already have, I guess. It's kind of what I'm after here. It's not
Yeah.
something you don't possess yet. It's usually just a small mindset thing, a little piece of friction that is keeping it stuck. All right. Next one I've got here is you don't need more time. And this is from a section that talked about how you have all the time that you will ever get, which was an interesting way of framing it. Like I've heard the advice before that we all have the same 24 hours in a day. It's up to us how we use them. But when you think about, obviously it's not infinite and it is a limited resource. So just like that mindset is important because it's going to cause you to do something today rather than put it off until tomorrow. If it really is important for you, you should start. In fact, there's a thing later on. I didn't write this one down, but like 5 years from now, you'll wish you had started today. But it's an interesting picture when you think about from you really can't like go backwards. All you can do is consider like where you are right now. You have all the time you will ever get right now. That can't be said for the amount of money that you have, right? Any other resource, you can go and you can get more of it some way, shape, or form. But you can't do that with time. So I don't know. When I heard that, it just kind of instantly disarmed the excuse of, well, I need more time. It's like, no, there will never be more time. All the time that you will ever have has already been given to you. And what you really need is more focus, which obviously I like that approach. But really what he's saying is that you have the time that you need to do whatever it is that you want to do. What you need to do is get rid of the things that are not important, that are not moving the needle, that aren't hitting the mark. And then you will be able to follow through on this thing that, borrowing from like the Eisenhower matrix, is important, but maybe not urgent, right? That's where a lot of that stuff tends to fall, I feel.
This morning I was reading through this outline and reflecting on specifically the ones that you wrote down, because I had already done that with the ones I had written. And this one really stood out to me. And as I was processing it, it occurred to me that like it seems like there's so much of our like the expectations that society puts on us and that our peers tend to put on us is that you need to have all of the experiences. Like you need to be able to go all the different places. You need to be able to be extremely fit, do the 4 different businesses. Like, and you hear the stories of people who do everything, quote unquote, everything. And that is held up on a pedestal that we are to aspire towards. If that's the case, then we are now comparing ourselves to somebody who runs 1,000 miles an hour and doesn't sleep and is able to pull that off. And they're exchanging probably some long-term health and some things in order to be able to do that. But we hold that up and then want to be healthy and not rushed and not busy at the same time. And those are competing desires. So that's, I think, this is borderline hot take. I think some of that is why we tend to want more time. And that's why we are regularly saying, well, I just don't have the time for that. I need more time to get all the things done. We tend to say that when the reality is like, well, your expectations of the things you need to accomplish or you think you need to accomplish is actually way too high. And you need to back that off. This is something I've been trying to work on for a few months now. I was talking to a friend about this a little while back too. Like, I'm trying to get to where I have one big thing that I need to get done today, and that's the thing I'm going to get done today. Everything else is gravy. Like, if I get more than that accomplished, then it's just great. But I'm not going to assume that. Like today, it's getting Bookworm recorded. I've gotten a couple other things done before we started here, fairly minor, cleaning off some flash drives, building sermon slides for Sunday. Like those don't have to happen today, but I got them done because I had some time and was motivated to do it. And I've got a few things I may do this afternoon, but it doesn't really matter because this is the big thing for today. So it's not that we need more time. We just need lower expectations, I think, of ourselves.
Lower expectations or more clarity on what's really important.
Yes. Now, if we continue some of that train of thought, let's go to page 58. This one, this one was a little bit convicting. If it fails where you thought it would fail, that is not a failure. I really didn't like that because there are regularly times when I'll put something together and it's like, I'm pretty sure this is going to fail. And then it fails. I'm like, okay, now I got to try something else. But it was like a hope. Like there's a chance that I thought it was going to work. I was 99% certain it was going to fail, but it's because I took a shortcut that I should not have taken. Or I was just praying that it would somehow be different this time because I'm doing the same thing over and over again, hoping it'll work. Not that that's insane. So, like, this one was convicting to me. The number of times I've plugged something into another device that I know doesn't work and hoping it's going to work this time. It's not a failure. I knew it was coming. It's a lack of insight on my part.
Yeah, I feel like that example specifically kind of resonates with me. We talked, maybe it was before we hit record, about the studio display adventures I've been on recently.
Yep.
And the dock, because I had this setup which I knew was kind of held together with duct tape. I had 2 monitors plugged into a dock, and they all had USB-C hubs in the back, and so there were 4 ports on the back of those which were packed. And then the dock itself, every port was packed. And frequently, when I would plug that one cable into my computer, because that's the dream, right? The laptop with a single cable.
Yep.
I'm like, all right, this is awesome. But frequently when I would plug it in, something wouldn't work because there's just too much I/O there.
It's trying to do too many things on one cable.
Let me turn it up, let me turn the audio interface off and on, and that would fix it, or unplug the camera and plug it back in. But when that failed and I had to figure out something because I was giving the Obsidian University session that afternoon, I bought the studio display. I simplified a lot of things on my setup. My desk is a lot cleaner now. And you were teasing me a little bit because I wasn't planning to spend the $600 on the studio display. I didn't really want to spend that money right now. But also, like, how much is it going to cost me to continue to, when I plug this in, pray that everything is going to work?
Yes.
And I realized, like, it's valuable to just know that this is bulletproof. And yeah, I like my simplified setup. The monitors have kind of worked their way down the chain. One of them is being used upstairs with the Family Mac Mini. One of them is in Door County, which I used when I did some sessions from up there. So it's all good. But yeah, like, if it fails where you thought it was gonna fail, I guess, like, when I read that phrase, I was like, well, I don't plug it in thinking that something's going to fail, but that's just because I never, like, sit and think about what I'm actually asking all this equipment to do. The minute that I thought about it rationally, I'm like, this is a miracle that it never works.
Yes. At one point, I have to deal with, like, docks and stuff all the time because everybody wants the one cable hookup when they sit down at their desk, and I have to support people who want that. And I had to do some research at one point, like, how much data do certain devices require of that dock, and then what cable are you using to plug it into the computer, and put all those different devices together collectively, and can the dock pass all of that back to the computer back and forth without getting over 75% capacity? Because when you get above that, like, it starts to get to where you're, like, clogging the line, and it's not necessarily easy. And things like audio interfaces and external cameras and stuff, like, those are eating a lot of bandwidth. You plug them into a dock and then plug your dock into the computer. Unless you're using something like Thunderbolt or Thunderbolt 4, like, it's not going to handle it very well, and it's going to fail. And yes, this is why, like, even in my case, like, the camera and stuff we're using now that's a completely separate computer. Like, I use 2 computers to do this because it's too much. And even my audio interface, it's a separate cable. I run that separate because I don't trust it through the dock. So yes, I hear you. It's completely off topic, but good topic.
Well, I guess it got me thinking, like, your approach to, if it fails where you thought it would, it's not a failure. Like, you would have looked at that setup and been like, oh yeah, well, I think this is going to fail here, but it
Yes.
challenged me to think a little bit more about how things work, I guess, because I realized that I don't really think things are going to fail most of the time. But if I did stop and think about it, I would be able to see
Yeah.
those things coming.
Right. This is actually why people give me grief, but like when I sit down, I've got a data cable plugged into my dock, which is plugged into the computer. That's how that is my primary internet on my computer because I build the Wi-Fi network here in our building, but I don't trust wireless for mission critical anything. Like when it comes to even sound stuff on the stage, I don't run wireless mics if I can get away with it. Like everything is wired if it's possible, 100% of the time, especially if I'm playing music off of like a phone or a tablet or another computer. Every time I'm going to hardwire it in any way I possibly can because the wireless stuff, it it will work 99% of the time, but that
Yeah.
1% is going to be in the middle of a service when I have to have it happen. Like that's when that 1% is going to strike, and I do not want that
Yep.
to happen. So
Right.
basically, I'm paranoid. That's what we're learning today. Is Joe is paranoid about technology.
Rightfully so, I would argue. But summer is here, and that is one of the busiest times of the year for us as a family. Seems like we always have something going on. And that means that sometimes we don't have the time to make good, nutritious meals at home. But instead of going through the fast food line, I want to encourage you to try out Factor. Factor is America's #1 ready to eat meal kit, and it can help you fuel up fast with flavorful and nutritious ready to eat meals that are delivered straight to your door. You can save time and eat well without compromising on your eating goals. If you're too busy with summer plans to cook, you're not alone, but want to make sure that you're still eating well? Well, with Factor, you can. You can skip that extra trip to the grocery store and all the chopping, prepping, and cleaning up too, while still getting the flavor and the nutritional quality that you need. I love Factor's fresh, never frozen meals. They're ready in just 2 minutes, so all you have to do is heat them up and enjoy. Then you can get back outside and soak up that beautiful weather. And Factor's meals really are great. They let you feel your best while making the most of your summer adventures. You can stick to your wellness goals with their premium ready to eat meals, which feature high quality ingredients like broccolini, leeks, and asparagus. Treat yourself to 34 or more weekly restaurant quality options like bruschetta shrimp risotto, Greek goddess chicken, and grilled steakhouse filet mignon ready in just 2 minutes. I've had several Factor meals the last couple of weeks. A couple of my favorites were the herb crusted chicken with the mashed cauliflower and toasted almond green beans, and the chipotle rub pork chop with roasted cabbage and red bell pepper fondue. And no matter what your lifestyle, Factor has delicious flavor-packed options that can meet it. From keto to calorie smart, vegan and veggie, and protein plus, all of Factor's meals are prepared by chefs and approved by dietitians, and each meal has all the ingredients you need to feel satisfied all day long while maintaining your goals. So this July, I encourage you to get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. I'm really enjoying it. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered right to your door, ready in just 2 minutes. No prep, no mess. So head over to factormeals.com/bookworm50 and use the code bookworm50, that's 50, to get 50% off. That's code bookworm50 at factormeals.com/bookworm50 to get 50% off. All right. Next one I wrote down was pay attention to what you pay attention to. And that sounds pretty simple, maybe, or straightforward. But for me, the revelation came with coupling that idea with the one that you had brought up earlier in the story of just the season I'm in with the business stuff and just trying stuff and not having it all planned out. I realized that there are certain things that can come onto my radar because they're shiny new object, or I hear about somebody doing something a certain way and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I'm going to sit down and figure out how to do that. Like I've definitely done that in the past, and that's the type of rabbit hole where I think it's going to take a couple of hours and it ends up taking a couple of weeks, right? But this thing is so cool. I want to make this happen. I don't have the luxury for that right now. I need to do the things that are going to hit the mark. So it's a different form of awareness for me right now that it's kind of hard to put into words, but it feels different than anything that I've done previously. There's like a heightened importance, and it just creates like an additional BS filter where it's like, no, 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 don't go there, right? But you couple that with this idea of pay attention to what you pay attention to. So I'm trying to figure out what is the thing that drives this business of mine, which what even is that business? I don't know. It's a bunch of stuff that I make online. What's the unifying thread there? I don't know. Right. So I'm trying to figure out all this stuff. And it became clear to me because I just kept asking, like, what's the most important thing right now? I'm trying to stay curious and figure out what I don't know. The thing that became evident to me is like, this is the thing that you really got to dial in is the newsletter, like the email list. I have 1,800 people on my email list, which is kind of remarkable because it doesn't have an identity and it's just been something that kind of existed on the side. But I went to Craft and Commerce and I met a whole bunch of people who have like 30,000 people on their email list. And honestly, like my stuff is as good as theirs. Like there's no reason that that couldn't be me. And not that email is the money button, but there that absolutely is true. In fact, I have been hypersensitive to this probably because of previous experience, shall we say, without naming names. Like I even said in my last Obsidian University session on Friday, I'm like, I know I pitched the life theme cohort, then I pitched Obsidian University, but people were asking like, well, what's next? How can we support you? And I was like, I got some ideas, but I don't want to just like constantly pitch. And people were like mad at me. Half the people on the call were like visibly upset. And one of them even wrote on a piece of paper and held up in front of their camera, like, Mike, pitch me. So like, obviously there's this balance between delivering value and asking someone to invest in the thing that you're making. And email marketing makes that easy because it's not just spam a whole bunch of people. It's like segmentation. And I know you're interested in this thing. So here's something that is valuable for the thing that you are interested in. I have all these ideas about how I can do that kind of stuff with Obsidian, with the book notes. I mean, all this kind of stuff. But I have to create like the systems to kind of put people in the place where they get the thing that they're interested in. The people who are reading books aren't necessarily interested in Obsidian. Let them tell me that they're interested in Obsidian before I send them some Obsidian emails, right? All that kind of stuff. So I'm focusing in on that, and I'm realizing I'm paying a lot of attention to like how to set up newsletter stuff. And then it kind of became clear like, well, I could like figure all this out for myself, but I've been bad at it up until this point. So is there anybody out there who could help me quick start this? That's how I got hooked up with Matt Ragland. I've always liked his stuff. I remember he did a email newsletter back in the day. It was a productivity newsletter, but he broke it down to like 4 different buckets. And basically it was like a choose your own adventure email course.
Yeah, I remember this. Yeah.
Yeah, like the dude's brilliant. Why not just have him look at my stuff and be like, okay, so this is what I would do, and then get the bones of it. And then from there, like I can crank out the words and build the things. But that's my version of pay attention to what you pay attention to, because the temptation for like the stuff that I've been doing is like just to make more stuff. But I'm hyper aware right now that that is not going to solve this burnout problem that I like right there with. If I just keep building stuff and keep launching stuff, like that is a vicious cycle.
Yes.
I can maybe keep that going for a little while, but that's not long term. Like it's got to be systematized. Email is the thing that I think it's the most important business system for an independent creator, and I suck at it. So that's what I'm paying attention to.
People talk about how they will, like the passive income thing, right? Like I built this course or this product and people can buy it anytime. But everybody I know that goes down the passive income route works at it full time because it always needs updated, or there's always another one. Or if you're not posting about it, then people assume it's dead and they don't buy it. Like it's not a build it, launch it, you're done. That doesn't exist. Even in the passive income world, it's all full-time stuff.
Yep, that is true.
I got a short one here for you on page 91. 5 words, which are very, very true. To be remarkable, read books. Okay, we can end the episode right there. I just had to write it down because even Kevin Kelly knows that great people read books. Comes up a lot. So if you're not reading these and you're just listening to us, you failed.
Yeah. So why do you think that is, though? I mean, I wrote that one down too. Obviously, to people who co-host a podcast on books, they're going to gravitate towards this. But I think there's something he's communicating here that is unsaid. He's not saying, to be remarkable, subscribe to Blinkist. He's not saying listen to books. He's not saying read blog posts. He's not saying go through video courses.
And he's not saying
Why
listen to a
is
podcast about books either.
He's not. Those are all maybe good things, but I agree. If you want to be remarkable, there is something specifically about reading books that is different. Why do you think that is?
I think I'm going to speak from personal experience here because people have different views on this. But if I were to listen to a book, I will tune it out and not have the memory of it. If I were to watch something, I can have the same reaction. I can sometimes tune things out and not pay attention to it, or check my phone while something is playing, or read something else while it's playing. So like that tendency. But if I'm reading words on a page, if I tune out, I have no idea where I'm at and I have to go back and start over. Because then I haven't read it and I don't know what they're talking about. It doesn't just keep going. I'm the one that makes it keep going. So I think you have that's step one, is like the attention that's required of it. And 2, with whether it's fiction or nonfiction, in my experience, it doesn't matter. Mike, you might have a different opinion on this. There are probably many people that could express your opinion on this. The thing about reading these books is that it's going to take you down somebody else's path that is either going to challenge or confirm your currently held beliefs. And that may be through them explaining a topic point blank, which would be your nonfiction books, which is what we cover. In the realm of fiction, you're diving into somebody else's brain and seeing how a character or characters interact with each other. And then you can learn from that social relationship, even though it's like an indirect, like, oh, whenever they talk to somebody rudely on the street, it led to this interaction. Well, that's going to inform the way that you talk on the street, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah, I feel like I'm unqualified to weigh in on this because I get teased all the time for not reading fiction books.
This is why I said both.
I think there is value in that. It's just not something I enjoy. I don't know what else to tell you. But reading physical books, I think, is, if I were to summarize it, more engaging. And that's going to produce a lot of the stuff that you were talking about. Like when you're listening to an audio format, it just keeps going, right? You don't stop and process because you don't understand. The audio keeps moving, and before long, your brain is attached to the next new novel thing. So I feel like audiobooks can kind of feed the dopamine engine, and that works against you thinking deeply and critically about things. If you got a physical book, you got to struggle through it. So, but I'm also biased on this. In fact, somebody sent me an email with a summary because they had asked Google Bard. So that's kind of the generative AI, summarize the tweets of Mike Schmitz. Got back the number one key takeaway. So apparently the thing that I talk about the most on Twitter, reading physical books is more engaging than reading on a screen.
Surprise,
Yep.
surprise.
So I think there's value in all those other mediums, but yeah, I think there is something about wrestling through the physical books that, I mean, that word remarkable, we don't have any sort of context around that. What does he mean by remarkable? I kind of think somebody who has an understanding at a deeper level and is more engaging, like that's the type of person that I would want to sit down and just talk to. Uh, are the people who actually like read books. I guess like maybe this is bad. I'll say it anyways. I've noticed when people find out I read a lot of books, the next follow-up question is obviously, well, what books have you read recently? And most of the time they're reading fiction and I'm reading business books, and the conversation ends there. We're very different mindsets.
Yes. Or they ask who your favorite author is, and if you say something like James Clear or Cal Newport, they're like, who?
Yep, exactly.
Really? Come on.
But occasionally it'll go, we've got a match there, so then we'll talk about a specific book. And there is a very different level of conversation that happens between the person who has listened to a book and the person who has actually read the book. And this is a generalization, I understand. I think you probably can get a lot from listening to a book, but the format doesn't do you any favors, right? So that's a small anecdote, I guess, small sample size, but almost every time that I've had a discussion about a book that somebody else has listened to, I have left disappointed. And the people who have actually read it, like Bookworm obviously anchors very heavily on the positive side for this, right? Because every 2 weeks we have a meaningful conversation about a book that we have actually read. I always walk out of those conversations feeling like, wow, I feel enriched. I feel like I understand it better, as opposed to like not being on the same wavelength.
There is and I'll let you go on to the next one after this, but there's also, whenever I listen to, because occasionally I'll listen to audiobooks, when I finish an audiobook, my usual reaction is, that was really cool. Which one do I want to listen to next? That's the reaction. When I finish reading a physical book, I usually have to set it down and then look up and just kind of process. And I don't think I could tell you why that is, but the feeling I have when I finish a book for each of those mediums is very different.
You just got done at the mental gym. You don't want to keep working out.
I guess, yeah. But I can't, again, I can't tune out when I'm reading the book. It forces me to get through every single word on the page. So I have to process it more fully that way.
Yep.
Okay. We could talk about these 5 words he wrote in this book for a long time.
Well, one last thing on this. I mentioned the mental gym. I feel like people who read on Audible and think that they have actually gleaned everything that they can from the book, you haven't. It's kind of like going to the gym and not doing the exercises the right way. I've used the analogy of like doing bench press but not putting any weight on the bar, right? Because the bar is just going to keep going. It's going to be easy, highlighted by the fact that you just mentioned, like when you're done, you're looking for the next thing. You just want to keep going, right? It shouldn't be that easy. If it's that easy, you're not getting maximum value from it. And then the other thing that I will share, because I do listen to, I've got an Audible subscription. I listen to Audible books. I will typically listen to Audible books when it's something that I want to go back and revisit. So books that I've read previously and I want to listen to again, or something like the Jim Rohn book, The Art of Exceptional Living. I'll listen to that in the car, like every time we've got a long car trip, just because I really like listening to him say it. Like there is something about a book being read by the author that you hear it a little bit different, because you're hearing it how they envision their emphasis is on the words that they think is important. And one tip I will give people, if you really want to get the most out of a book, get the physical book, get the Audible book, and listen to it while you read it. Have you ever done that?
I have not done this, but it is similar to it's similar to opening your Bible and listening to the pastor read the passage.
Yeah, I suppose.
It to me, it's very similar to that. It's not as long,
Yep.
obviously, but there's something about the depth of knowledge you get out of it from that
Yep.
process. Like you understand it a lot more fully. I don't know why. There's some neuroscience going on there that I can't explain it.
Right. Okay, enough about books. Let's go to
Okay.
the next one is aim for the unexpected. And again, this ends up this a lot of the things that I jotted down I realize are just things that are resonating with me in my current season of life. But he says rather than steering your life to avoid the unexpected, aim directly for it. This isn't exactly what he was talking about, but I feel like this is the path that I've kind of taken recently. Like going out on your own is always going to be scary. In fact, when people ask me like, "So what's it feel like?" It's both exciting and terrifying. And I realized for a long time I have played it safe, and I've been digging in deeper with that idea of like, well, what does it mean to play it safe? And basically, it was I knew what to expect. I don't know what to expect right now, and so that's kind of the thing that resonated with me when I read that. But then also, there's a lot of positive that has come from this decision that I've made already in the 6 or so weeks since I've done it. And we've heard this advice multiple times in a lot of the books that we've read. So kind of embracing that discomfort is kind of my interpretation of this. Like look for the things that make you uncomfortable and go do those things, because the reason that you feel uncomfortable about that is because you don't know what's going to happen.
I am going to butcher this quote, but in one of my previous boss's office, she had a plaque on the wall that said something to the effect that do something scary every day or do something uncomfortable every day or something along those lines. And like, okay, if you're willing to do that, that's when you're making progress. That's what keeps you moving forward and keeps you growing and keep you learning, to go back to your first one. Uh, so yeah, it's scary, and you're probably going to be bad at things at the beginning. You will be bad at things at the beginning, but that's okay. It's okay to do the unexpected. You'll be okay, Mike.
Hey, thanks. Especially if more people sign up for Obsidian University. So, obsidianuniversity.com.
Pitch me, Mike. Pitch me.
There you go.
Page 117. There's no such thing as being on time. Either you are late or you are early. Your choice. This one I bring up because it bugs me when people say that, oh, I'm so sorry, blah, 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 I'm late. Well, then you didn't plan on the buffer it would require to be on time or early. Like that's where my brain goes. Like the people who are perpetually late, well, you're making the choice to do that. And like I see this tension even in our own house. Like I'm somebody that would rather get to church, say 10 minutes early, just so I don't want to hustle. I want to drive leisurely to the church on Sunday morning. But not everyone in my family will do that. They realize that it's, a 10, 12-minute drive. So leaving the house 15 minutes before the service starts is perfectly fine. Well, that means that you've now not accounted for the time it takes to get into the vehicle, get into a parking lot, get out of the vehicle, get into the building. Like you're now 2 to 3 minutes late. But we tend to only account for the drive time. So I see this tension even in my own household, so it drives me nuts because I'm the one that wants to be there early. But it is interesting to me that he calls it out in that if you think you're going to be on time and you want to get there on time, but you're late, it's a choice that you've made. You've simply not accounted for the buffer it requires to get that done. Like if I don't drive to the cities very often, the Twin Cities, but whenever I do and I have to park somewhere, I always account for like 15 to 20 minutes for that because it's not going to happen fast. Like trying to find parking is a pain. So I'm aware of that. But if I'm taking somebody with me, they will regularly like, oh, it takes 45 minutes to get there. It's like, yeah, which is why we're gonna leave an hour and 10 minutes before it starts. Like that's what we're doing. We don't need to be there that early. And the number of times that I force it and then we show up right as it's starting, it's like glad I pushed on that. So anyway, this just drives me nuts. It's a pet peeve of mine. That's why I brought it up.
Our church is 15 miles away, and we have driven separately for about 10 years.
Yep.
For that very reason.
I understand. I understand. Totally understand. Yep. It's always the people who are closer who are later. You ever realize
Yep.
that?
Totally.
Like, if you live 3 miles away, they're always 10 minutes late. Like I don't know why that is, but it just seems to be the case. But if somebody is coming to an event and they're 4 hours away, they'll be there 30 minutes early. It's weird.
Yep. Next one I wrote down, I have it in the notes as love your spouse. The thing he says is the very best thing you can do for your kids is to love your spouse. And this I wrote down because this is actually, I think, really brilliant advice, but there's a whole lot of context. Like I've heard versions of this before that obviously he doesn't get into the rationale behind this. But the men's ministry curriculum that we go through at our church is by a guy named Ed Cole. And he wrote a whole bunch of books, which have workbooks that go along with them. And he's kind of the guy who initiated a lot of like the men's ministry movement, at least in the US. I've been to like this conference that they do in Dallas every year where they have people from all over the world who have been impacted by this curriculum. They come and they talk about, they've got their ministries that they're involved with. And it's always inspiring because they're like world changer type people. But he said in that curriculum, and this really hit with me when I heard it the first time, and I've read this stuff probably dozens of times at this point. So every time I read it, it speaks to me that the best thing that a father can do for their children is to love their mother. And I was thinking, like, why is that? And I think part of it is that when you show to your kids that you and your spouse are a team, that they can't divide you, right? Because that's what kids will try to do. They'll ask dad, can I do this? And say no, and then they go ask mom, can I do this? Sure. Like I did that when I was a kid, but my kids have tried that, and they know at this point that it's not going to work because the first thing I will say, or the first thing Rachel will say, is, "Well, what did Dad say, or what did Mom say?" Like we're a united front, and even if I disagree with something or Rachel disagrees with something, if the other one has said it, like we'll back the other one. And
Yep. If a decision has been made, it stands.
Yep. Another thing that we do is like every once in a while, in front of everybody, be like, hey, just so you know, mom's my favorite, or just so you know, dad's my favorite. Like making it clear that we are together, we were together before you, we'll be together after you. And that maybe sounds a little bit harsh, but the effect of that, I think, is that there is a peace that comes to the kids when there's an order established like that. He's not saying this in this book, but this is kind of my personal opinion and just what I've seen in our home. Like when you follow when you follow the structure, and I realize not everybody has, this ideal structure, and you got to make do with what you got sometimes. If you keep the main thing, which for me is my relationship with my spouse, that is the primary relationship I am concerned about. The kids are secondary. They're not far behind, but they know the hierarchy. What that does is it just makes everything in our home much easier, much simpler. There's just like way less friction with things, because we don't like explicitly say it all the time. We're not like driving the point home, but just every once in a while, small ways, reinforcing like, hey, this is the pecking order, essentially. Um, that has produced a a lot of stability, I feel.
There's also something to be said about the lack of concern or worry about whether or not mom or dad are going to stay together. If you're truly and authentically loving your spouse, as this calls for, your kids do not have that worry. I remember at one point, one of our girls had asked, was like, "Well, are you guys ever gonna get divorced?" Like that question came up. It's like, and to us, the answer is no. That's not even an option. It's not even a word that's allowed to be put on the table.
Yeah.
So for us, absolutely 100%, there's absolutely nothing that will ever lead to that. That's a decision we've made. And if we make that known to our kids, like, well, then they don't ever have to worry about mom and dad splitting up. And if they don't have that worry, that does give them that stability as well. But this all starts with truly loving each other, right? So
Yeah.
if I focus on loving Becky well, you don't even get to where those are conversations. And love is a choice, right? So
Exactly. And
if
it's a
I'm
commitment too. It's not a feeling. At least that's our perspective on it. And so like when you say
yes,
you're not going to get divorced, that's not like looking into the future and saying like there is an impossible set of circumstances where that would ever happen, but it's basically saying we are committed to doing everything in our power to not move in that direction. And that's when it happens, is when you
correct.
start considering it, right? So we're not
Yeah,
going to provide the opportunity there. What does that require? It means that when we have a disagreement or somebody gets offended about something, we invest the extra time and the emotional energy to work through it because of the commitment that we've both made. It's not a disposable thing in our mind.
completely agree. Let's keep moving because this will take a while. Uh, Page 121. What you do on your bad days matters more than what you do on your good days. I wrote this down for myself because if I'm not feeling well or I'm unmotivated, I don't want to do a darn thing. I don't want to open my computer to do anything. I just want to, watch YouTube videos all day long. Like, and that's when I'm having a bad day. So the things that I do on those days are the ones that will indicate where I'm gonna like those are the ones that matter. Like if I'm able to push through on those difficult days, then even the small things can get done and keep moving forward. We haven't really touched on it, but he mentions in a few different ways that the little things build up over time and equal big results. So he does call that out. And if you're able to keep moving forward on those little things day after day, even when you don't feel like it, that's when you're going to make true progress. So I wrote this down just because I need the reminder and need the motivator. So thanks, Kevin Kelly.
Yeah, it reminded me of I don't know if it was in Atomic Habits, but it's definitely something James Clear has said about how the workouts on the days when you don't feel like it, like the bad workouts, those are the ones that are the most
Yeah.
important.
So do them whether you want to or not.
Exactly. All right. Next one for me is to embrace this mindset of what is the worst that could happen. He doesn't get into the details of this, but this is essentially like the fear setting stuff from Tim Ferriss, which I'm not a fan of Tim Ferriss at all. But in my mind, there are two great things he has contributed to the world. One is this concept of fear setting. The other one is the video on how to do a proper kettlebell swing.
Roughly the same value from both of those.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to Josh for sharing that video with me initially. But the concept of fear setting is basically we tend to be scared of things that we don't understand. And so if you're scared of something, that can keep you from doing something. And so this process of fear setting is like the inverse of goal setting. You let your mind wander and envision this worst case scenario. And what you discover through that is that this worst case scenario, when you look at it after you're done, you realize it's really not all that bad. I kind of went through this when I was considering making the decision to go full-time independent, because in my mind it was like, well, what if it doesn't work out, right? And then one day I kind of didn't mention I was doing this, but did this with Rachel. And I said something along the lines of like, what's the worst that could happen? And she's like, yeah, that's the spirit. And I was like, no, really, what is the worst that could happen? We just
Actually answer that question.
thought through it together, and realized that like I could get another job. Is that the worst thing in the world? Well, then why not give this a shot? So as long as you are not naming it, like that ambiguity about like, well, what if it fails? You'll feel all this tension and you'll feel all this stress about this made up monster, right? But then the minute that you can actually see it for what it is, it's kind of like, oh, well, that's not so bad. I mean, it's not a desirable outcome, but it's figure outable if that were to be the case. If no one signs up for Obsidian University, the podcast shut down tomorrow, like no one takes out another ad, like I can figure that out, right? And the process of fear setting is what gave me the confidence to be able to say that.
Yeah, this is a great question to ask, but it's an even better question to actually answer.
Yeah.
Like it's generally posed as a rhetorical, but if you were to take it past rhetoric and start to actually put answers on a piece of paper about this question, it really disarms the whole situation. I've done it a couple times with some projects. Like, what's the worst that could happen if I were to move forward with this? It's a scary idea, but the worst that could happen is I'm out a few bucks and some time. Well, it's probably worth it then.
Yep.
So it's a great question to ask.
All right.
So if we go to page 147, this is probably one of the longest ones in here, but I'm going to read this because it makes way more sense the way he wrote it than any way I'm going to explain it. Okay, this is explore or optimize. Do you optimize what you know will sell or explore with something new? Do you order a restaurant dish you are sure is great? Optimize. Or do you try something new? Do you keep dating new folks? Explore, or try to commit to someone you met? The ideal balance for exploring new things versus optimizing those already found is 1/3. Spend 1/3 of your time on exploring and 2/3 on optimizing and deepening. As you mature, it is harder to devote time to exploring because it seems unproductive, but aim for 1/3. Huh, interesting. I bring this up because as I age, I don't want to do new things super often and want to stick with the ways that I know work well, even when it comes to tech, which is interesting considering how fast it moves and it's always changing, and that's part of the point, right? But as much as I love sticking with the stability side, like I'm kind of reaching the point where I need to be reminded, like, it's okay to explore things. Like, when Becky and I go out for date nights and go to a restaurant, like we've got one or two that we love to go to all the time. But if we were to explore new ones, we may find new ones that we absolutely love, but we wouldn't do that if we didn't try new places. So I needed this reminder. It's like, it's okay to try new things. Just do it.
Agreed. Just try new things. Should we maybe just pick one more each?
Sure. I'm good with that.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to pick don't attribute to malice what can be attributed to ignorance. And this is essentially saying give other people the benefit of the doubt. But I think there's more to this. Like, this is good advice in and of itself, but why do we do this? And what this is saying is like, if someone were to do something and I don't understand why they did it, they didn't talk to me about it, they didn't offer an explanation, the tendency can be to think like, well, they did it on purpose. And this is most prevalent, I think, in relationships with people that you are close to, specifically your significant other. I mean, because you live with this person. For example, my wife, no one knows how to push my buttons more than she does, but she's not doing it intentionally most of the time. Most of the time, it's just I have communicated, I feel like 100 times, I prefer things a certain way. And so when that thing doesn't happen that certain way, my initial thought is, well, she's doing this on purpose. She knows obviously that I like it this certain way, and she's choosing not to, right? No, she's not thinking about it that
She's
way.
not thinking about you that much,
Um,
apparently.
well, that's not exactly what I
I
mean,
know, I
but
know.
I use that as the easy example because I'm assuming, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm just a jerk, but I feel like other people can relate to that example, right?
Yeah.
So you have somebody close to you, you feel like it's obvious that this is the thing to do if someone really wants to be nice to you. And when they do something that seems contradictory to that, obviously it's because they are angry at you or they want to tick you off. And that's not the case. It reminds me of another thing that I read in the Ed Cole curriculum, that we tend to judge others by their actions, but ourselves by our intentions, right? I think that's at the heart of
Yeah.
this, is like you just look at what somebody else did and you assume the malice, you assume the ill intent. But to your joking point previously, no one's thinking about you that much. They just messed up. It's not a big deal. Right? So, good reminder to think the best of people, and if it's possible that they just made a mistake, assume that they just made a mistake, that they're not trying to do this to get under your skin.
So the last one I want to pick here is page 196. Instead of asking your child what they learned today, ask them who they helped today. This one strikes home a lot because I feel like I need to do this point blank with my kids. So I have that as an action item as well. It's like I need to start trying to ask them who they helped today. At the same time, this is very convicting to me because I I can process what it is I got better at today and have, kind of notice what did I get better at today? Like usually it's some tech or sound or video something. That's usually what the answer is, but the real question here is who did I help in that process? And like I need to ask that myself that question as well. If I'm going to be willing to or wanting to ask my kids that and make them answer that question, I should be ready to answer that as well. So I put this as part of like a daily questions thing, like at the end of the day, is like, who did you help today as a help for that. But yeah, I need to ask my kids that as well.
Awesome. Well, shall we go to aforementioned action items?
Sure.
All right. So I've got a couple here, which really have nothing to do with what we talked about.
Of course. That's how this works.
Yeah. So one of the things that he had mentioned was asking what I might be wrong about. There were a couple in here that were kind of on the list to talk about, but they're sort of related, like learning how to learn from those who you disagree with. That's actually the first one I jotted down from the book, and reminded me of the liminal thinking episode, which I am insanely grateful for having read that book. I come back to that bubble of belief all the time and just seeking out conversation and dialogue with people who disagree with you, and how important that is. But I want to ask myself, where might I be wrong about something? So that's essentially just ask that question. What might I be wrong about? Hopefully I'll have a list. I'm not sure I want to share that list, but I am going to commit to making the list and finishing the other two that are on the top there. I'll make Rachel drive to Macstock, then I can do them in the car. I don't know.
Oh, there you go.
We'll figure something out, but I will get those done. I promise.
Sick if I did that.
All right. There was another one which I think I know the answer to this, but I want to take a fresh look at it. Figure out when you are the most productive and protect that time. Pretty sure it's the morning. I'm pretty sure it's about 10 o'clock. But I want to identify like my golden hour, essentially. This is a concept that comes back to, I think it was Make Time, where we first talked about this. Chris Bailey talks about biological prime time. That's sort of the same idea, but I have a little bit more flexibility with my schedule now, so I can really lean into this and I need to just put a little bit more emphasis on this and make sure that I'm hitting the mark with that. Then the other thing he talked about was the idea of a Sabbath. And I think that obviously is a really great idea. I have been putting in way too many hours. I need to have a Sabbath, but not like a traditional Sabbath. I guess like I've created a Sabbath on Sundays, but that is also filled with church stuff. So I need a little bit more margin in my schedule. And when I read that part about the Sabbath, the thing that popped to my mind was the concept of the weekend Wednesdays from CPG Gray.
Yes.
And I think I might be able to pull that off. So I want to dig into that and see if that is in fact possible. I guess I'll report back by next time if I've been able to make that work. I think this is a victory, even if it's just even like half a day on Wednesday. But I feel like that's the perfect spot because by Saturday, usually there's some stuff that's running over or something else got added, and I need to figure it out because it's urgent and important. There's been a lot of that stuff with the business lately, so may as well just lean into that since it's happening anyways, and figure out maybe another release valve in the middle of the week. I feel like Wednesday might actually work, so we're gonna give that a go.
Cool. Well, I've got 2 here. I've talked about both of them already, but figuring out what a rite of passage for my girls would look like and rough timing age-wise. And the other one was this one I just talked about was the who did you help today as a daily question for myself, but also for my kids and asking them. So those are the 2 I have.
Alrighty. So style and rating. My book, I'll go first. This might be a little bit tricky because this is not a style that really lends itself well to the bookworm format.
Yep.
Hopefully we've had some interesting conversation and people are still listening, but who knows?
We'll see you next time.
I recognize that for a lot of people, they listen to bookworm as like a filter before they actually read the books. So yeah, this is a very different style. It is a bunch of little anecdotes, which makes it very easy to read. There's lots of stuff in here that can trigger inspiration, curiosity, and I think perhaps this is a good one to trigger, like, this is something I want to dig deeper in, although the way it's written doesn't really frame it that way. Like, you really have no idea what the context is for a lot of these things. Some of them are obvious, like, oh yeah, I want to figure out more about that, but a lot of them are framed as like, I have gotten this wisdom and this is the important part that you need to know. So I don't know. It is definitely a fun read. I think I would recommend this one for just about anybody in the bookworm audience. It's the sum total of Kevin Kelly's life experience until the point that he wrote this. And I feel like Kevin Kelly is somebody that I would like to learn from. So I guess the exception here would be if you are familiar with Kevin Kelly and just completely rubs you the wrong way for whatever reason, then maybe don't pick this one up. But I feel like there's a lot of little nuggets here, and you will find something that is going to get you thinking about something. I don't know how much staying power this has. Like, I can't imagine ever going back and wanting to reread this one. But I am glad that I read it, and I will agree with the people who recommended it to me that it is a good book. It's just not a traditional book at all. So know what you're getting yourself into. And then also a lot of this stuff we have talked about, heard about in different ways, shapes, or forms in just about every other book that we've covered for Bookworm. So there's not a lot of really impactful trigger points, I feel, Like, I don't know, maybe if you're coming to this at a different point than we are, having read 174 books before this, um, and even actually more before that in our reading journey, everything kind of comes back to How to Read a Book by Mortimer Adler, right? And the idea of the syntopical reading. I just can't disconnect from that as I'm reading this. There's all these different things, and I'm pointing out, oh, that idea comes from this other book, or I heard about this from this other person in this other book. I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is I feel like there's a possibility the experience that we had is not the experience that others would have. But again, bookworm listeners kind of would default towards our end of the spectrum, I feel. Can you imagine though, like if you were a relative of Kevin Kelly's and you didn't read any of these books that we read, and you just show up at his 68th birthday party and you receive something like this, can you envision how that might hit different?
That would hit very different.
Exactly. You'd probably be like, wow, this guy is a genius.
Correct. If you're not a reader and you don't go through nonfiction and you were handed this, like, dude.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's like in the right scenario, this could be like really, really cool. Maybe as like a graduation gift to someone is not, they're going off to college or whatever, and they haven't read a bunch of these books. Like this might be a great primer sort of a thing.
Yeah.
He challenges us at the beginning to give it to somebody younger than us, right? So that's kind of the whole idea here. All that to say, like where we're at, having read this book, I don't think this is a life-changing book personally. I do think it's a fun read. I do think there's some good stuff in here. I really enjoyed the conversation we had about this stuff. I'll give it 4.0 for stars. And for the right person, I think you should definitely add this one to your library. I don't think I would say that to someone who's in the same shoes as you or I, or even somebody older. Like if you have read a lot of these books already, you've probably encountered a lot of these ideas. So yeah, I would recommend people read it. But if you're trying to decide between this and something else, I mean, it depends on the other book, I guess, but I would probably recommend the other one. But yeah, it's kind of hard to put this one in a neat little box, but I'm glad that I have it in my library. I can just foresee a scenario where people will be like, "Oh yeah, I know all this stuff already."
Right. Yeah, I think the style of this is very interesting, and I kind of like it. It's kind of like reading a quote book from one person because that's what you're doing. And there are so many times that I would read one and like, wait a second, and then I'd have to stop and think it through. It's like that is partly why it took me a little bit longer than one sitting to get through. I think it was like maybe 3 or 4 to get through this, and it's because there are some that'll give you pause and force you to slow down a little bit. So it's very well written. Each one of these, he's obviously spent quite a bit of time wordsmithing them down so that they're very concise and distilling them into the main part that you need to gather from the idea and not expanding on it beyond necessity. So I really appreciate the time that's very obviously been put into this. And Kevin Kelly's a smart dude, so you can definitely learn from him. So there's a lot in here that you could learn from. I think you're spot on in saying like we've covered pretty much all of this. Like, there's some stuff about like tech investing in here as well that we just kind of skipped over.
True.
But there's that side of it. But that's okay. Like again, it's very wide ranging as far as the different ways of offering advice here. I think 4.0 is exactly where it should sit. I absolutely do. It's like it's a great book. Loved reading it. Has a lot of great advice in it. A lot of great quips here and there. So really appreciated it. But I think 4.0 is the right spot. Right spot for it.
All right. Well, let's put excellent advice for living on the shelf. What's next, Joe?
Up next, we have The Art of Clear Thinking. Not The Art of Clearly Thinking. But this is by Hassard Lee. Tagline on this is a stealth fighter pilot's Timeless Rules for Making Tough Decisions. This was recommended by Blake in the chat, who I know is a pilot. So it makes sense. I feel like I've never been directed wrong from some of Blake's recommendations, and this one's rated pretty highly too. So I'm excited to go through this one. I've started it already, so it'll be a good conversation, obviously. And what do you have selected after that, Mike?
I am going to pick a recommendation from the Bookworm Club, and that is Life Worth Living, A Guide to What Matters Most by Miroslav Volf, Matthew Crossman, and Ryan McAnally Linz. I have no idea what to expect from this because I have never heard of this book before.
Sure.
But looking at the description for this, it looks right in my wheelhouse.
Nice. How about Gap books?
No Gap books.
Me either.
I'm hoping to have a Gap book by next time. I feel like I've been saying that a lot, but
I should have, given how quick this one was to read, but I took the extra time and went outside.
Oh, actually, I do have a Gap book that I read.
Which was?
Read it for church. The Awe of God by John Bevere.
Oh, I've heard of that one.
It's a good one.
Cool.
If that's your thing. All right. Well, thank you to everyone who has listened thus far. And thank you specifically to the Bookworm Club premium members who help us keep the lights on. For $5 a month, $50 a year, you can get our undying gratitude as well as all the mind maps from the books that we read. So I've mentioned a couple times the mind map for this book. I take those in MindNode and then I share those in the Bookworm Club. So you can download either the PDF version or the MindNode document itself if you want to take it and run with it from there. You also get access to the 4K wallpaper and some Gap Book episodes that Joe did back in the day. But yeah, you can find out more at bookworm.fm/membership.
Cool. And if you are reading along with us, pick up The Art of Clear Thinking by Hassard Lee. We'll cover that one with you in a couple of weeks.